Hi everybody, welcome back to Moscone West. You're watching theCUBE's continuous coverage of RSAC 2025. My name is Dave Vellante, John Furrier's here, as well as Jackie McGuire and John Olczyk, the whole CUBE team. We're really excited to have Jason Thompson in the house as the Chief Strategy Officer at SecurityScorecard. Jason, welcome, good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Dave. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for taking some time. I mean, everybody knows SecurityScorecard as you guys kind of do the A to F ratings, but you know, we were just talking how much more you do, but give us the update on the company and your role.
So we've been moving more towards supply chain detection and response, which is a natural growth story for us from our core of the ratings. We basically are looking at the issue-specific type issues that findings that you have in your supply chain, and then we take a detection and response approach to that, much like XDR and MDR, and apply response actions to those detections. So companies right now are getting stuck at, hey, I see there's something bad happening in my supply chain, but now what do I do with it? Even like a simple first step, like who do I contact, becomes a really difficult thing for companies to do because they don't know who is the right contact. So from our perspective, if we can facilitate that and eliminate that friction, that becomes highly beneficial for organizations so they can actually resolve those issues.
Yeah, it's like drilling for oil in the old days. No, 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 oh yeah, okay. Yep. So you're running around trying to figure out where the root of the problem is, and you guys can compress that. Yep. So step back, we were talking off camera, I said it was SolarWinds kind of the catalyst of this? You were like, yeah, well the supply chain's been a problem for a long time. It's just, you didn't say this, but I guess I'll finish the sentence. It's like, okay, that hit the news, and it was an insidious attack, and one that, you know, really kind of novel that we hadn't seen before, although Log4j, like you said, and many others. So what's the kind of, take us through the sort of the history, if you will, of the supply chain attacks from a threat standpoint. How has that evolved?
Well, it's getting worse, first of all, and two, when something happens, take CrowdStrike's issue that they had, which wasn't cyber related, but when that happened, everyone wanted to know, where in my supply chain is this, how is this going to impact me, what are the implications for our business? So if you apply that same issue of an outage to a cybersecurity attack, of which there's many instances of that, all of a sudden you realize that there's this huge impact across the entire, multiple industries, across the globe, that could potentially impact an organization. So from that perspective, companies want to know where are these risks living inside of my organization or outside of my organization in the supply chain that are going to be connected to me. How do I identify those and how do I resolve those? The issue that I think you see hundreds of millions and potentially billions of dollars worth of investment into trying to solve this problem, but it hasn't really gotten to the point where you can actually get to remediation. Remediation is the key. So if I can just identify an issue and say over and over again, hey, there's a bad thing happening, a high vulnerability, a CV that's very high scoring, that's an issue for an organization, but what do I do about that? That becomes the next issue of how do I connect the dots to the people in the organization that is my supplier that can actually resolve that issue. And if you can't do that, you actually can't do a full detection response framework. You can't complete that task.
So you hear these kind of catchy phrases like peacetime and wartime security.
Yes.
So is this peacetime before the war hits?
Yeah.
Is it, you know, or is it when the bombs are dropping, they're calling you? Where do you fit in that?
When you think spectrum of ratings, that is really more of a risk management approach of saying, I'm going to put something in a bucket of A, B, C, D, F. I'm going to try to reduce my risk. If you look at supply chain detection and response, just like MDR, XDR, cloud detection and response, that really is more wartime. Something's gone boom, now I've got to go I have to take an action on that. So by applying both of those things through a single platform or a single approach, you both have the risk management approach, but also we see third-party risk management and vendor risk management more and more focusing on the SOC and security operations. We've got to bridge the two together because right now they're separate. Third-party risk management and vendor risk management has tended to be more administratively focused and is not focusing as much on actually resolving the risk. The SOC is aware of this. The threat intelligence folks are aware of these issues, but they don't know how to unlock the path to get that resolved, so they're kind of stuck. If we can bridge those two together and then create a connection path to those partners, at that point, we're actually going to resolve, or begin to resolve the supply chain issues out there.
So that's the difference between traditional third-party risk management approaches and what you guys are doing is you're actually taking action, or at least demonstrating how to take action. So how does it, validate that, double click on that if you would.
So our first product in that area is our Max product. So that's been out there for about 1.25 years. That's our fastest growing product right now. So that takes the same data and telemetry we have in the security ratings platform, the scorecard platform, and we actually put a managed service on top of that. So that managed service group will actually reach out to the vendor and work to remediate issues. So you reach out to a vendor, let's say it's some small packaging supplier, they don't even have a security team, right? You reach out to them and they say like, I don't know if that's ours and I don't know what to do about it. That's if you can find the person to talk to. So you've got to have somebody on the other side that can help them resolve that issue. So that response action alone, that actually is the component that reduces the risk significantly. If you just leave that as a risk that I've identified, but you don't take any action off of that, that's going to get exploited. When that gets exploited, then it's going to start to impact your own organization, potentially your supply chain, and that could be a critical vendor. There are critical vendors that are very small vendors for large companies that have very little cybersecurity capability, and they have no ability to resolve that. Internal organizations, if you think about the macro, right? Every single company today has to develop their own vendor risk management protocols and teams. They do not have sufficient staffing, especially now with cuts and layoffs, to make sure that they are able to support that function, and they don't have the technical capability to reach out to all of these vendors to go resolve that. That's where we come in from the response side of that. So that's where supply chain detection and response comes in. We're starting off with a managed service. We'll be announcing something later this year around a product on that will be designed to facilitate better connection between the suppliers and customers, but that is the secret sauce. That is how we're going to make supply chain cybersecurity and cyber risk, how we're going to reduce that.
Is the resolution, how does the resolution work? Is it automated? Is it human in the loop? Is it a combination? Is the industry moving toward greater automation?
Greater automation is going to be key. I mean, right now you're at a point where we wait for a customer to find an issue in a supplier's environment, and then the supplier reacts to the customer's questionnaire. That's a pretty bad way to do cyber risk, considering that data is already available. So we actually have ESM solutions. We have footprinting solutions where you can actually say to a vendor, you can proactively see what's going on here, but a lot of companies don't either know to do that or they don't have that in place. So you still have this sort of like, the issue's been identified, the customer finds it, then they're going back and forth with the vendor to go ahead and resolve this. In the meantime, the bad guy already sees this stuff, right? Yeah. So this is the time, this is your exposure time. And so what we're trying to do is get to the point where we can actually shrink that exposure time down so that the vendor sees this immediately and then can report back and say, we saw the issue, even before you sent us a questionnaire and said, hey, what's this issue? We report back to you that that's been resolved and it's done. That's the panacea, right? If we can get to the point where we have agentic AI doing that back and forth, that's even better because at that point, we remove a lot of the administrative work that you have to put in place to communicate back and forth. We're not quite there yet. We're probably 5 to 7 years away from that, but that's where we want to get to.
Thank you for that, by the way, because I've said the same thing. You know, because it's a data problem, you've got to actually solve that before you can actually trust that an agent is going to go act on your behalf. But talk about the IP that you have in Security Scorecard and the relationship between your traditional, A to F across, factors like network and security and DNS health, all that other stuff that you guys do, and how you applied that to the supply chain problem and then new innovations that you had to develop.
So right now it's similar data sets, right? It's just used in a different way. If you think about the risk management component, you start with the score and you work your way down. From a detection and response perspective, you start with the issue and then you work with the most severe issue that has the greatest business impact and you work your way down. You're trying to eliminate those risks. And if you have an incident, then you've got to respond to that incident as well. So they're similar, they're using the same underlying IP and data set. So for us, it's actually just flipping the cards and saying, for the ratings use case, for the risk management use case, we start with the score. For the security operations folks, we start with the issues. And this has always been sort of a little bit of a pull in the market because the SOC has not always loved the rating side because we're starting with the score. So if I come up to you and say, hey, Dave, you've got a D, right?
What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly, like what do you mean? Okay, so the risk management folks want to know that. They want to know, how do I easily categorize this, just like a credit score, just like if you went to a lender, they want to know if you're a 650 or a 720 and that's going to price your cost for your loan, your interest rate. And the perspective of the SOC is very different. The SOC wants to know, what is the thing that's going to get me popped today? How do I die today? And as an industry, or as a market, we have not done a great job of talking to the SOC and showing them that telemetry. Now we're starting to do that and they're going like, oh, this is actually really valuable for us. We actually want to know what's happening here. And if you start looking at compliance requirements and how organizations are looking at this. So go off into Europe, which obviously leads with regulation way before the United States does. They've already got, we've got customers that are major financials in Europe where the national government is reaching out to these financials saying to them, we're monitoring your supply chain, and by the way, we saw this and need you to take care of it, right? And that's fitting into this DORA framework that they're building out there that's saying you've got to know what your third parties and fourth parties and beyond are doing, and you're legally responsible for that. That's going to come stateside too. It'll also hit Asia, but from a security perspective beyond just compliance, those are really critical things because now people know, like, hey, you've got to take control of these supply chain issues, and you've got to move this closer and closer to security operations because it is a life or death kind of scenario for most organizations.
So it was a TAM expansion for you without the product risk.
Correct.
Right, I mean, you kind of already have the product market fit because you know the persona wants this. In fact, it's a more receptive persona, is what you're saying.
Exactly, really taking that same data set and exposing it in a different way into a different use case. One of the things that allowed us to do this, we acquired a company called LifeOurs, which was a professional services firm that did instant response and things that would be more closely tied to the SOC. And that crew, when they looked at the data, they came back and said, hey, there's a use case for this on the security operations side. And if you do this, this becomes very valuable. And all of a sudden we showed that to folks and they said, yeah. So from the standpoint of being efficiently moving into an additional adjacency, and I think it's a bit of a blue ocean too, because there's really no one else there. If you go around here, you see at RSA, there's many acronyms that are used over and over again. I think ours will be the only one that has supply chain detection and response. And if you think about how that fits into the overall picture, XDR, that core, cloud detection and response, that next layer out, that final frontier is really supply chain detection and response. Okay,
as a strategy person, you got to think about at least roughly like the size of these markets and how you're going to have to, how do you think about the overall TAM? How does it compare to say XDR and your previous business?
So we look at endpoints from the outside in, EDR looks at it from the inside out, right? So invert it, that's smaller than EDR because you're going to have more endpoints, servers, things like that internally. It would be in the billions if you fully extrapolated this market out. I think it fits into the XDR market very nicely, so we're looking to partner with XDR solution providers. We also are developing this as a partner-first approach. So we're talking to the biggest of the big as far as service delivery partners, cybersecurity partners, you can imagine who those are, all the way to organizations that are doing service delivery and also resellers. So there's a large community out there of folks who are already doing detection response on XDR. They're also doing third-party risk. It's very inefficient. They're really excited about using this as an engine for their continued business as well.
We just did a survey with our partners, Enterprise Technology Research, and they had a question in there. It wasn't a small, it was 500 N, not tiny, big enough. Just last week they released the results. How, and the question is, how has rising geopolitical tensions and cyber threats influenced your company's cybersecurity budget? And 43% said they've changed their spending habits because of threats. And then a large percentage, I think it was like a third, said they've actually already seen heightened attacks related to the change in geopolitical tension. So I think of the pyramid, you got nation states, you got organized crime, you got hackers, AI is helping the bottom end of the pyramid, the top end of the pyramid is super sophisticated. Throw in supply chain, and it's just a mess, it's chaos. And so, in a way, these uncertainties have sort of, must be a tailwind for your business.
I think so. I mean, if you look at, especially today as we start to see some of the challenges to the global supply chain, we start to realize, even if you shift from, say, US and China ships back to Europe, your supply chain's still connected, right? And so it is a web, and I don't think you're going to sever that web. And so that creates a lot of complexity for organizations to understand where is that piece of software that is going to cause a problem for me? Where is it coming from, potentially? Like what nation state is it coming from? Does it have vulnerabilities? All those things live out there in a very dynamic ecosystem that is very challenging for organizations to get hold of.
Right, I mean, I saw in Financial Times last week that Apple's going to move the production of 60 million iPhones to India. Okay, well, interesting. I mean, that's Apple, so I'm sure they've got the resources to secure this, but these small businesses don't, and if they have to change their supply chains, the different suppliers, different software supply chain, and so, how do I engage with you? What's the engagement model?
As far as if you're a buyer from it?
How do I buy from you? What am I buying? Who's your ICP? What's
ICP can range, and it's a little bit different depending on the product type. So we see a maturity curve in place. So organizations that are at the lower end of the maturity curve are likely going to be using ratings and questionnaires, basic blocking and tackling, things they need to do. As organizations get more mature, and we're seeing this in the heavily regulated industries, they want our Max product, they want our SCD product line. That is for organizations that need to make sure that, especially within their most critical vendors, that those are monitored and managed 24/7. If there's an issue, it's being addressed, and they can reduce the time of any kind of vulnerability exposure. If there's ransomware present, they're notified of it and they can make decisions. So it kind of depends. We have solutions for each organization based upon where they're at. Not everyone's going to start with Max. Some will start with basic ratings. Some will start with questionnaires. Some will start with a productized version of Max, which is our SCDR product. That is done purposefully, because even if you look across the globe, in APAC, for instance, they're still in that early adoption phase for the basics. When you get into heavily regulated industries in North America and Europe, they're saying we need something that's supercharged to make sure that 24/7 this is managed just like we do with XDR, MDR.
And size of company that you sell to?
Size, it can vary. So we've got thousands of companies that are using our premium version, which is they can access their own scorecard for free, all the way up to the biggest banks in the world. So it depends. For our SCDR products, we've started sort of Tesla model, top of market, and then we're coming down to meet the needs, probably working more with the MSSP and other service providers on that. But our core product line, which is our ratings product line, that can be used across any industry or any company size. And
it's a combination of service and software, or is it pure software, or pure
The Max product is more of a, think of like CrowdStrike's managed service model, so like that is a very similar model to CrowdStrike Complete, where you've got something at the very top where you want a managed service to run that for you. And we have a self-serve product lines as well, so you can do that as a self-serve as well. We find that a lot of organizations now are looking for something around a co-managed solution. The external telemetry ends up being a bit esoteric for a lot of organizations to understand. This is true with risk intelligence, threat intelligence. The internet's a wild place, right? And so when you look at something, and you have to have a specific amount of knowledge about how to take an action on that and to identify what that is. A lot of organizations want to be able to pick up the red phone and say, hey, SecurityScorecard, we need your help with this, and they want a co-managed environment for some of these as well. So we flex to meet the needs of what the companies want.
So what do you got going on here at RSAC?
We've got, I threw the extra letter in there. So we've got a booth here, so we're exhibiting. We've got a ton of great meetings with partners and customers. It's a great event every year for us.
Where's your booth? Is it north, south?
I think it's on west. So
okay.
Yeah, it's west. So a good sized booth, and stop by. We've got some cool stuff there, and cool giveaways, t-shirts, things like that. But most importantly, you can demo the Max product. So if anyone's looking for a supply chain detection response solution, or you're interested in taking your third-party risk and vendor risk management to the next level, bridging that with your security operations, it's a great place to stop by and just learn a little bit more.
Very cool. Well, Jason, thanks for stopping by and sharing a little bit about SecurityScorecard, and good luck in the future.
All right, thank you.
Great to have you on. All right, and thank you for watching. This is Dave Vellante. You're watching RSAC 2025, theCUBE's coverage. John Furrier's here, myself, Dave Vellante. We're right back right after this short break.